Welcome to Kim and Angela Talk. Kim is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist, PSYCH-K facilitator, curious human, forever student, and a loving mum. Angela is a Reiki master, PSYCH-K facilitator, metaphysical nerd, compulsive learner, and childless cat lady. Come along for the ride as they explore the mysteries of the universe and their own lives, all while enjoying a good laugh together.
Hi, I'm Angela.
And I'm Kim.
And together we're Kim and Angela Talks. Kim, how are you today?
I am doing very well today, Angela. How are you?
I am doing great. And why? Because that's the intention I set for today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because I was thinking earlier, we're both energy workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, isn't everyone an energy worker? Because, everything is energy.
Very true.
Yeah. So what do we want to do with that energy? That our energy that is our body, our energy that is the day that we create? Well, we want to use that energy in a positive way, right?
Definitely with intention. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, use it with intention. And part of that, is like setting an intention for the day. What's the day that you want to have? Do you want to go out into the world and have a wonderful day where everything is filled with amusement and love and amazingness? Or do you want to go out into the world and, have it be what what the media reflects to you on a daily basis?
Mm.
Well, I don't want that. Which is,
Me neither.
yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
I get just enough to know that it's a good idea not to watch the news, basically. And one of the things about the media, is that it's also like full of stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the message I got today was actually about story.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do share. Do share.
Part I got.
Oh,
Storyteller's Jewels. Yeah. I think I went to college with this girl.
Wow. And what's the oracle deck for this one?
Oracle deck is from my Sacred Hags Oracle by Daniel Wolski. I really love this deck, especially because I'm very much a hag at these going into my growth phase, right, of my life.
I think, we've entered the zone.
We've entered the zone, and I'm down with that,
Yeah, me too.
And why? Because that's the story I'm creating. I'm creating the fact that like this part of my life is going to be amazing, regardless of what society tells us about women of a certain age.
Right.
So the Storyteller's Jewels, and it's, profile this lovely woman with very interesting jewelry, from the nose rings and the chains to her ears and the earplug and the necklaces. And, I like my jewelry as well. Got the crystals on. Yeah. So the beginning of this and the main message of this card is, I kind of like this thing because they have the grandmother speaks and then they have a morning ritual and an evening ritual. So I'm going to read the grandmother speaks. It's a bit long, but
I like that there's action steps for that you can do.
Yes.
You're going through the cards. That's kind of fun.
And they have a prompt for writing in your journal as well, which
is
really cool. So this is a great deck.
Nice.
And it, again, speaks to me because of, being a sacred hag.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, we house 1,000,001 stories in our hearts, my love. Tell me, if you were to leave this world forever today, never having told that one story you were destined to tell, would your spirit wander, searching for the hungry ears of sleeping witches to whisper your words into? How would it feel to write this story today, to share it, if only with those loving ghosts who know you best? Such a vicious lie is it that our stories are too small to matter, that if the epic myths of our lives do not end in a sword-raised victory, we may as well keep our lips sealed. You've earned every lesson you might teach, my love. So why would you not share your voice with the world?
Oh,
I know.
That's strong. That gets you in the feels.
Oh, I know. And that's definitely a story of wisdom. I mean, that's coming from a place of wisdom from someone who, the grandmothers who've had the life, and who tell stories and share their experiences with us. And so when I got this message, what got me thinking, what is the story that I want to leave behind? What's the story that any of us want to leave behind? What are we doing with our lives? Is it one where we're just going to plodding along in the meat suit as if this is our reality? Are we co-creating our reality with divinity?
Right.
Are we listening to the negative self-talk? Or
Mhm.
are we in going in the circles of negative self-talk and downgrading ourselves and listening to like what the media tells us about what it is to be a woman or what it is to be a man in our culture, what it is to be a certain race, what it is to be a certain gender or sexual orientation? Are we putting that as our reality, like what society is telling us, what media is telling us, or are we creating our own reality? And then because of creating our own reality, what's the story we're sharing with people, with our children, with our families, with anyone around us? Because are we just going along, plodding along, listening to everything else, or are we making this story ourselves? And so it goes back to this whole, setting your intention, setting your intention for the day, using our energy in a positive way, using our energy to create the reality that we want to live and also to create the story that we want to leave behind.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Yeah. And one of the things that really got to me about this message was, besides the idea of creating our reality and creating this intention, but it's also about sharing, and that each one of our stories is worth something. Each one of us has an impact in the world, and it may be a positive impact, or it may be one that is deemed less positive. But aren't stories that are, seem on the surface not positive, or maybe like, I don't know, like destructive, aren't those stories also valuable to show us, because without these dark stories, with tales of people who are, do harm in this world, without those stories, do we really see what the light is?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can't kind of deny the other or pretend it doesn't exist, or it's kind of like what you resist persists. We were
Yes.
talking about that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's a whole. The picture is a whole, and we're deeming it as negative, which obviously, varying degrees along a spectrum. But yeah, the contrast between the two, the light and the dark, and shining the light on the dark, to bring that forth. And I think that's kind of what, tales of warning, or like it comes in all forms, the storytelling thing. So I think they're equally as important to share, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also when you think about these stories of other people's stories that are, of hardships, um, and perhaps things that they did that they weren't proud of, or that like had really what you would think of as negative impacts on other people. When you're looking at these stories, aren't there also, they're just lessons to be had in them all? And these are also experiences that the people in these stories really were able to learn from and to experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, so that comes from, an ability for self-forgiveness. Again, we've talked about that a bit
Yeah.
on the different podcasts. And then, yeah, having this self-forgiveness and also having the courage to then stand up and share that story, so that hopefully others could then delve into past things and so on, either forgiving others or forgiving self for things, like kind of, again, it's always changing the perspective that we have on things. But yeah, being brave, because stepping up, saying sorry uh, for things of the past, but also then sharing them as tales of, if I can do it, you can do it, kind of thing. Like showing how you've turned it around, or show how you've shed light on a situation that otherwise looked quite dark or shameful, but then able to then flip it around and shine light on it again from the heart. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's important because we're all human. We all make mistakes. And yeah, we need to take more of the shame out of that, but more of the like what we do in PSYCH-K, right? We celebrate when we shift something because that's part of it too. So that's an important acknowledgement. And then to share that, I think that's a really big, important piece.
Yeah, because without conflict, without any adversity in our lives, we wouldn't grow.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this as well. Like when the butterfly is leaving the cocoon, it's got to have that struggle. Well,
Mm-hmm.
as human beings, a lot of our life is struggle and conflict, but it's really like, how do we come out on the other side of that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the best stories have darkness in them
Yeah.
because because like you said, like because of that darkness, then we can see what the light is. If we're always eating cotton candy,
Mm-hmm.
then we're just going to get a bunch of cavities, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we need to have more to our
Oh,
life than
yeah.
just, you know, beautiful. I mean, maybe some people can work in this zone of only ever experiencing these beautiful, amazing experiences. But well, actually, I'm thinking of the book that we both read recently, Anna, Grandmother of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she talks about Yeshua as a young man before he was the prophet, before he went out as a teacher, and actually having a lot of struggles, actually having like times where like there was so much going on within him, and
Mm-hmm.
he felt so much that he would have these moments of just like kind of losing it.
Right.
And it was really cool because it made him so much more human
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, because he was a man. Joshua was a man, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he was the son of God, but as we are all children of God.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the way, not because you have to believe in him as like the son of God, it's this like holy being, but to kind of emulate his how he approached life, and the fact that like everything for him was about love. It was really love is the way to God, and love is the way to divinity. And this is what we're talking about when we're using our energy in a positive way. Well, what's more positive than love? So if we are constantly acting out of this period of love for ourselves and other people, then we are going through the way of Yeshua, how Yeshua showed us. And I say Yeshua because I prefer that as his
Mm-hmm.
Hebrew name, because it has less connotation for me as someone who was raised Catholic and also had to go to an evangelical church when I was visiting my grandmother. So I have a lot of negative associations with that. I have done a lot of religious healing with Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
So like now, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also say that it also makes his story so much more relatable when you look at him as this man who was yes gifted, and definitely in at a higher vibrational level,
Mm-hmm.
but still a man, and he's
Right.
still a human being. So that's a really great book, and I totally recommend it. The Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. And it definitely goes along too with what is the reality that we want to create. Do
Mm-hmm.
we want to create a reality of love? Absolutely. Are we going to stumble?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to like mess up?
Yeah. Yeah. The humanness comes out.
Oh
Right.
yeah, just the other day I was like driving, and I was thinking to myself, why is it that every blankety blank car comes out in front of me when I'm trying to get somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And I was having those moments, and then I of course checked myself, because part of it too is like checking yourself, right? Yeah, you're going to have these human emotions, you're going to have these human feelings, but then you're going to say, oh wait, okay, what's going on? Is this
Right.
really because of this driver in front of me, or is this
Yeah.
just because I'm having my own
Yeah.
issues?
You're anxious to get somewhere or you're late or whatever it is. And yeah, so there's a lot of like automatic pilot going on there. And then it's just like, so yeah, that pause, giving that pause. We're always talking about the pause.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it back home. Go breathe.
Well, and definitely one of my, for me, it was definitely low blood sugar, and I was on my way to get my vegan sushi.
People were in between you and the food. It's like basic instincts are coming through here, guys. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
And like part of our, creating our using our energy in a positive way and creating our own reality is to check ourselves, to check like what's going on with ourselves. Like when we do get into these negative patterns of self-talk and we do get into judgment.
Yep.
I mean, because we are still human. Yes, you're spiritual beings having a human experience, but the human experience is very, very palpable.
Yes. Awareness is key. And just again, like what you did, like awareness of, and then, wait a minute, right? Just that. Yeah, that's what, and the more that becomes a habit, then the shorter those spurts of ego driven, instinctual, slow down.
Right?
Yeah. Or you can let go of them quicker, at the self actualization of like realizing that, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. That's just autopilot. Just back that truck up a little bit.
Yeah. Just recognizing that, we are all energy workers in our own way. And the fact is, if we're putting all this stuff out there, the anger and the frustration out there, well, that's what we're going to get more of in return. And one of the ways that we can do this, or to sort of like kind of check ourselves, is to like say, set an intention for the day. Like, that today is going to be great. I'm going to have this wonderful, loving day. And when things come up in the day, as they will, because we're not, we are sharing this reality with different people who have different views of realities. Of course, things are going to come up, right? So yeah, you can get swept along with that. We can let our egos take us away and take us with that, or we can really kind of like pull back and say, okay, well, this is not what I want to experience right now. This is not the intention I set for my day. I've got to do work in a different way to have the energy and the experience that I want and that I'm putting out there. And it can be difficult. It totally could. Like I had recently had an experience of driving and parking in Seattle that left me not happy, to put it in a very kind way.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time after that sitting and giving myself Reiki, sitting in a whole brain posture, which is the PSYCH-K thing, giving myself Reiki just to get back to where I wanted to be, because it was a social event. I had to, get it together, because I didn't want to bring that to the table. I didn't want to be putting this energy out with my niece and her friends. I wanted to be able to have this experience in a way that I was able to be happy about, like later on. Like, so I didn't look back on that night and say, oh, I was just a miserable night.
Right.
That's a reality I would have been creating for myself. Like I could have just gone with the anger. I could have just gone with the frustration. And it was hard not to, because it was like there was other things involved there, but it was like being able to like sit there and check it and like, okay, what's going on with me? What's really underlying this? And how am I going to combat this in the moment? How am I going to change this narrative so that I can have the evening that I want to have?
Right.
And I can have the experience with these people that I love in the way that I want to have it. And so that's, for me, definitely it was like being able to sit in whole brain posture, give myself Reiki. I was like pulling all the stops, because I really wanted
all the tools. Bring them all. Yeah.
You don't need Reiki and you don't need the PSYCH-K for this stuff. There's different modalities and different ways of doing it, like heart focused breathing. We both do heart math as well. And like heart focused breathing is a really great way to do that, to kind of chill it and get back into your center. And part of it, or you could just simply be like, telling yourself, like, I'm going to have this, I'm going to change this for myself. I'm good. I'm happy.
Yeah. Just say it.
Yeah.
Inside. Just say it to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, bring it back to intention.
Yes. You have the negative thought, you have the thought that brings your energy down. Then the next thing to do is have another thought or say something else to at least neutralize that, if not raise your vibration up again. Because I
Right.
mean, what's the point of living in a life or like creating a life of like, negativity and darkness? And I mean, and I also get that too, because I was there for a lot of years where like it was really difficult. I was not really conscious. I was
Mhm.
going along with this, like, definitely identifying with myself as this ego body. It was really before I was aware of a lot of things. I hadn't really gotten back into like this idea of like, oh, it's not just all about me. It
Yeah.
was before I really got back into my spiritual self. I would like very much, rather than dealing with my issues, I just avoided them by like playing video games and smoking a
Mm.
bunch of weed, which is fun for a short time, and if there's nothing's wrong with that stuff, and really, in a way, if you're doing it with the right intention. It's one thing if you're doing it for escaping your life.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
If you're going to smoke weed and play video games, do it with the intention of like, this is fun for me. This is why I want to do it. So that's, it's all about intention.
Yeah.
It's all about intention. We were talking about this also earlier about food, having have their, like, I don't eat meat, but not because of, it's just simply because I don't want to, I lost my taste for it. Partly maybe it had something to do with doing animal Reiki and stuff, but
Right.
that's a choice, and I don't feel restricted by that choice.
Right.
There's always something for me to eat when I go out with people, like even if it's just French fries,
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that's how I want to be. And like, you don't have to, if you're always saying or putting the restrictions on yourself and being stressed out about it, like people who are vegan are vegetarian for health reasons but feel restricted by that, and
Mhm.
aren't really happy about that, they're
Right.
actually,
Feel deprived. Feel
they
deprived.
feel deprived. You're creating more stress, which is also not healthy.
Right.
Because if you eat a Big Mac and you're like, oh my God, I love this Big Mac, it makes me so happy. Ah, that is something completely different. That's healthier than eating like, a tofu and vegetable dinner and be like, oh my God, oh, why am I eating this dirt? Or something like that. Because
Yeah.
then you're putting this energy of
You're
negativity.
in, yeah, in conflict with like doing something good for yourself.
Yes.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny. Again, we talked about this a little earlier, to do with that specialized sort of restrictive diet that we were doing
Yes.
with no caffeine and no dairy and no wheat and no, what was the other thing? Everything, sugar. And then we kind of
Nothing.
ended, sorry?
No, nothing.
No, nothing. It felt like it. And so it was 3 weeks at the end of the day. So this ended partway through the this past week. And it was amazing when we went, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. And it was such a strong pull during it. Really wanted a regular cup of tea with milk in it. Really wanted it. And sugar too, in any format, including fruit, but couldn't have it. And when we opened the floodgates of possibilities, went, we're done. Um, it was like, huh, okay. And then there wasn't the drive for all that stuff. And we have had a couple of sweet things and kind of gone, wow, that's really sweet. And so we've actually stuck to a lot of the things. Like, we haven't gone back to wheat. We have had a little bit of cheese. So dairy has snuck in a little bit, but not a lot. And I just, yeah, it's amazing how when you remove the restriction, the drive for whatever it was that you couldn't have almost just like disappears,
Yeah.
which is so bizarre, but it does. So yeah, and it's like, what is the saying? What we resist persists. And yeah, it's fascinating because it was really, the two of us were struggling so much. It was like almost palpable. Um, the denial of everything. It was like you could taste it. It was like, oh, but after we did it, it was like we both relaxed and went like, well, what was that all about? Like, because it was just, and it wasn't that we were like everything in sight. We really hardly even changed anything, except I did have one cup of tea during the day, which was delightful to have again. But it wasn't like I had 14 cups of tea, like, whoa, party on. Yeah, very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. but definitely, yeah, fascinating.
Well, yeah, when you're putting positive energy into your food and into your life, well, that's also what you're going to be experiencing. That's what you're getting back.
Mhm.
So going, having because we have a friend who recently went from vegan to eating meat again, and she's like, I love this.
Mhm.
And that is healthier for her, and that is healthier for everyone. If you're going to be eating meat or eating anything, be like, I love this is a lot healthier for you than eating a healthy diet,
And being angry.
angry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I think, you talk about energy and food and stuff. And I think um, that always dawns on me too when like mealtime is coming up. And if you're in a rush and you're angry about something else, let's say, and you're preparing a meal, there's definitely like an intensity going into it that's not positive versus like it's relaxed, you got music on, you're prepping dinner, it's all in a good mood. And it's just like the meal tastes different. I don't know. Again, it's energy put into the thing. You do not want your food prepared angrily. So,
yeah, you
yeah.
want to put joy into it and love into it. It's like why blessing your food's always a good idea. I bless my
Yeah.
food with Reiki.
Yeah. I
But
mean, that goes back old school, right?
yes.
People used to do that all the time. That used to be a thing, but done kind of under the guises of a religious
Mhm.
cover. But it makes sense just on the daily for just a life
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Well, one of the things they talk about too, and again about the energy is like gratitude, having gratitude for things. So
Mhm.
gratitude for the food that you've
Mhm.
received, gratitude for the
Exactly.
people who are out in the fields working, gratitude for the animal that sacrificed its life
Mhm.
for you,
Mhm.
gratitude for Mother Earth for bringing the bounty to you.
Right.
It takes a moment to have this gratitude, but it has such a huge impact because you're putting that gratitude out and it's creating positive energy. So then you bring that's the reality that you're creating for yourself. And in creating a reality of gratitude and love, that's also the story you're going to leave behind. That's what people are going to remember. Because anybody I know who's passed and who has had a huge impact, a positive impact on people's lives, that's what people talk about. That's what people remember is like, the love that they gave, the good things that they did, the experience of being with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
The
you just,
feeling. Yeah.
yeah, that's the story that they left behind. It's totally different, like, but then there's other people in this world and, past and present, who the story they leave behind is horror and terror and death and destruction.
Mhm.
And again, valuable if only for the experience of, or the seeing what is not, you don't want in this world, like
Mhm.
what we need to work against in this world. And really, the only way to work against that is by putting out more light and more love.
Mhm.
Because, like, someone operating from that perspective is not really going to respond to your light and love, or like, you can't, if you fight that or try to fight that with like equal, like, vehemence or
Mhm.
negative energy, it's just creating
Mhm.
more energy.
Mhm.
I saw some ridiculous, one of the headlines I saw was so ridiculous about certain someone whose initials are EM, saying how empathy is a terrible thing, or like the terror, some ridiculous thing about like how it's basically the gist I don't remember the exact words. The gist of it was like empathy is terrible. It's like, how is it a bad thing to be able to feel compassion for another person, to feel, to look at them and look at their lives and be like, oh, and be able to like sort of see yourself in those shoes and recognize that, yeah, that person has had a difficult life. That person has had challenges in their life, but look how, but look at what they're doing, and look at they're still going on and trying to have a better life for themselves and the people in their lives. How is that a bad thing?
Well, and it's kind of hard if you don't have empathy to have compassion
Yeah.
for where they're at. So I don't know if you remember me telling you how my youngest had an experience in school with one of his teachers. This is middle school era. And my little guy is very empathetic to people in distress. And there was a child who hurt themselves in his class, and he was very concerned over how they were, and making sure that they were okay. Because for him, he knows kind of when things go sideways in school, how sometimes you can feel alone and scared and what have you. And so, he's grown up in an environment where caring for others in the family is a big thing to put forward. And I had a meeting with the teacher, and the teacher said that, issue was that he was too empathetic and too concerned about, his classmate in this particular instance. And I was like, huh. So I was trying to figure out if he was concerned because my son wouldn't sort of, not that he wouldn't drop it, but that he was inquiring again. So maybe he was distracted from his schoolwork. And that was frustrating the teacher. But I just thought, wow, I don't know that should be viewed as a negative thing when someone is a caring person to another person who's in distress and just, wants to, because part of thinking back to, what we learned in BCST about the importance of trauma and processing trauma in the midst of if you've had a car crash and there might be not, the helpers on scene to begin with, but if there's just one human who can be there to look you in the eyes and tell you it's going to be okay, that can be the difference between a trauma really sticking with you going forward, or whether it's enough to kind of calm the nervous system down so that, because I can't remember which book that was in. It was the one, I think, with the tiger on the front.
Walking the Tiger, or Waking the Tiger. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And just that human to human connection, really makes a difference. So I think lots of people need to read that book. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I kind of segued on your empathy comment, but it just reminded me of that because I found that really shocking in today's age where people are very separate and judgmental and so on. And it's just interesting how the adults are defining that as a negative, and it just, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was at 16, it was the first day of junior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a passenger in a car and end up in the windshield, go right into the windshield, and
Wow.
scar here for it. And
Wow.
I was in shock, but what I definitely remember is the girl who was driving freaking out, pushing me out of the car. And then sitting on the sidewalk with blood dripping into my hands like this. And no one, so I think somebody might have said, "Are you okay?" But no one really connected. I think at least someone called an ambulance and whatever. But there wasn't any real connection. It was everybody was sort of it was more of a gawking thing as opposed to really having any kind of care for this person who's bleeding all over themselves.
Wow.
So it was pretty traumatic, and it took a long time to get over that. I kind of made the next few years of high school even worse for me. I mean, they weren't great to begin with.
Yeah. Jeez, that's
but
crazy.
that made things a lot worse in numerous ways. And so, yeah, I can totally see how when you're there's this weird switch between this observing and kind of gawking this, like, the people who rubberneck accidents. No care there. It's all about their own entertainment value, or maybe it's possible they're like, some of the people who are standing around were having their own shock experience of watching this.
Right. They might be in freeze and not know what to do.
Yeah. And I mean, that's totally possible. I don't judge these people for not, because I'm sure nobody there had like, studied this stuff. I mean, back then, people, most people still don't really know what to do in that kind of a situation until like even the EMTs, because in Peter Levine's follow-up book, In an Unspoken Voice, he talks about himself being hit by a car. And when the EMTs show up and he goes into the ambulance, like they try to do their typical shock response, and he's like, I have to shake it out. He knew what to do.
Oh, right. Yeah. That he was shaking, right? Yeah. Which they try and stifle, which is like the mammal way of shaking off terror of it all.
Yes, exactly. So even the EMTs didn't know what the proper response was to someone in that state who was trying to release that trauma, because they're not taught that.
Yeah.
So of course, these people who, years before any of this was really in the consciousness of most anybody, really, those people wouldn't know what to do for someone who was like in a state of shock. Right. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how related we are, and all these like, it's again another thing with energy. It's like I was in my own freeze, and maybe it's also possible that affected those people around me. And nobody, because no one there was aware enough or conscious enough to kind of like break out of that. It's just like blossomed out, because again, we're all energy. We all have effect on people. We're entangled. We have the quantum entanglement. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And again, goes back to like, having this idea of putting the energy out there. This is I mean, it's not quite related to the like being in a car accident, but of this kinetic energy and the like. Well, I guess it is related, because like, that event also had such a huge impact on my life for, and still is there a little bit, just because of recovery from concussion. A lot better, obviously, because it was a long time ago, but there's still like little problem or issues with that because of the concussion. So as you could probably tell by the way I talk. So, but at the same time, I also know that this is not just me. Like the physical aspects of me are not me, solely me. It's a part of me. It's an experience of me. It's the experience that I'm having, but it is not really me. Einstein, I have it written down here. Einstein said it's like the optical illusion of consciousness, identifying as the optical illusion of consciousness is like us identifying as this physical being. But this is just the vehicle through which we experience life on this planet. But when in reality, this is not all of me. Our souls are eternal and go beyond the meat suit, as it were.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's where you're talking about like creating your story, based on ego of just this here, now, what have you, or more of a divinity kind of offshoot. And my favorite little guy, that's not very nice to say, my favorite gentleman that I listen to and read his books, Greg Braden, had a very cute quote for the definition of divinity, which divinity is defined as the ability to transcend perceived human limitations.
Yeah.
So, because we are so much more than what we appear to be.
Exactly.
Right. So
we want to create from divinity and co-create our lives in alignment with divinity, or do we want to co-create our lives from a point of ego, which is so limited?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. Yeah, he continued, I think, to share that we have the ability to become more than the limits that we have placed upon ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's where lovely things like our fun PSYCH-K come in that are so brilliant for redefining our beliefs and redefining our reality the way we wish to shape it, and making sure that we go back and disarm all the previous set beliefs of limitation placed upon us by parents, friends, society, TV, whatever it is that, is telling us kind of who we are and how we are and what have you, and being able to kind of undo that and resetting it the way we want, with good intentions for how we wish to be going forward, which is an amazing thing to be able to do. So
Yeah.
Yay, PSYCH-K.
Yeah, co-creating our reality and creating the story that we want to leave behind, just to tie it back to the message.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since we do this whole Oracle deck thing.
We do the message thing. Yeah, we do for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Feel complete on that. I'm going to throw mine in, but I have a feeling I'm going to confess that obviously there'll be something to say about mine, but I feel like after all that, there was like so much. So I'm not quite sure exactly where we're going to go off of this one. But my message today was out of this lovely Oracle deck, which I love so much because I love birds. So it's all messages from spirit guides, animal spirit guides. And funny enough, the spirit guide that decided to show itself today was the blue heron, which is a cute little birdie. Actually, it's a pretty big birdie.
Nice.
So the message on this card, and then I'll talk about the particular message that came out of it, but it's make a stand for what you believe in and do what feels right in spite of any judgment or disapproval from others. So out of the booklet, the particular message sent for me, relating back to using your energy in a positive way, was trust in moving forward. So I think for me, that's going to speak to sometimes uncertainty of directions to take, decisions to make, lacking of action steps on my part, for sure. And I think that goes back to being able to center yourself and to get in touch with that inner knowing coming from divinity, not ego going, no, you can't. Or you're too blah, blah, blah to do that, or what have you, which, ringy dingies in the back of your head, and being aware of those little voices and actually giving them a hug because they came on scene for various reasons. And then you can love them, hug them, and then you can switch to the next best of what it is you want to do. Yeah, so I think a big thing is, and it's, I think, going to tie in with the last message as well, but not being too impatient with yourself as you go through this process of all these changes and figuring out who we are and embracing ourselves as an energy being and capable of manifesting and being able to choose what direction you want, and whether you want to just do it from an ego point of view and just kind of in autopilot and asleep and just, kind of let it go, or whether you want to really have focused intention for serving others and bringing joy and passion into your life for things that bring you happiness, and working more from that perspective of kind of always going for what brings you joy, because then inevitably that's going to bring more positivity and bring more situations and bring more things into your life that will bring you more joy, and it will just perpetually feed on that just as easily as it can perpetually feed on more negative. Yeah. And so just embracing that, and again, bringing your trust to that and your awareness to that, and having to go back to it again and again because it slips out of your fingers, unfortunately, until it becomes maybe more of a habit. But we all spiral. We all get involved when other people's lives and things are spiraling, or things are going that then affect us and spiral us, and just being able, like you did, to sort of sit back in the moment and use the tools, or just take a deep breath and center again, and try and put it in perspective, and try and maybe even change the perspective of what's going on to make it a more learning experience of self and others, and celebrating that moment for what it is, even though it might be aggravating to begin with. But then looking at it in a more positive flip side. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's totally creating your story.
Mm-hmm.
Creating the story you want to leave behind, and definitely using your energy like consciously, positively, to create that story and to create the world and the reality that you want to live in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, moving forward, trusting yourself and moving forward. And how do you want to move forward? Do you want to move forward into a world of misery and darkness and anxiety, or do you want to move forward into a world of joy? One of the things that in using the emotion code, going through the practitioner training or certification process for the emotion code, I practiced with a lot of people, more so than I needed to as far as their certification requirements, because once I started working with some people, I wanted to continue, especially with my mom and my dad, because I've mentioned before, like they both had pretty shit childhoods and a lot of trauma in their lives as well, which unfortunately got passed on to me and my brother, a lot of it. But it wasn't their fault. They didn't, they both did the best they could. And now, in releasing the trapped emotions for them, like my dad, has gone from creating a reality of anxiety to creating a reality of just being chill and enjoying his life. And like he and his wife were having some issues like with government stuff. And once his mindset flipped on it, everything just kind of flowed and worked out.
Wow.
And he was like, oh,
How
yeah,
crazy.
everything's great now. Don't worry about it. It's like,
Wow.
it wasn't. You were the one who was worried about it and creating this energy, this energy of resistance of the things flowing to you. And a lot of, obviously it goes back to the whole manifestation, because like if we're putting out worry and anxiety, that's what we're manifesting in our lives, right? And with my mom, I started working the emotion code stuff with her because for her is really easy. She doesn't really have the capacity, I mean, to do other work. Like she's open to me doing work with her for her, but she wouldn't be able to do PSYCH-K and engage in PSYCH-K. But doing Reiki with her or for her, or doing the emotion code for her, was really easy because she can just enjoy the benefits. And the last time I talked with her, she showed a level of self-awareness that I had never ever heard from her before. It wasn't like because she's Italian and Catholic, and it wasn't the mea culpa, or the opposite of that, of like, the bully and the being a real unpleasant person, to put it nicely. She actually, we were talking, like our conversations of just, I started doing this work for her without really any expectations of our relationship getting better, but mostly just hoping that, without expectation, but hoping that, she would find some ease in this time of her life.
Right.
And that, because she's 80 years old, but like, because her life had been so hard, it's like she might as well be in her 90s, physically and mentally.
Right.
But she just has like changed in a way where like our conversations are a lot easier. She's not repeating the same patterns and the same stories of hardship and misery of her life. She's having more self-awareness about how, when she complains about the same things over and over, things that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago, over and over again, that's just creating more pain in her current life, because she's just repeating this on loop, right? And that's And I've talked to her for years about like, you've got to let this stuff go in the past because you're just bringing that energy back. All my words did not matter because it wasn't her experience, but being able to release the energy of trauma, the energy of these trapped emotions from her has made it so that she's like, oh, I don't have to continually live the miseries, relive these traumas and bring that past into my present and create my future that way. I mean, obviously she's not saying it quite like this,
No,
but
but yeah.
you
Wow.
know, but
That's
having,
phenomenal.
it's
Wow.
huge. It's
Yeah.
huge
Wow.
for her. So like my dad could say something, if my dad says something like that, I'm like, it doesn't surprise me because he's still an old hippie.
Yeah.
When he's,
Yeah.
and my
Mhm.
mom, I kind of was, when she was younger, was into more metaphysical thinking. And, I think I got a book from her about some yogi,
Right.
and Khalil Gibran and whatever. So she had those thoughts but I feel like just all the having to work so hard in her life,
Yeah. There was
all
just
the,
no space for it.
no, absolutely
Mm.
not.
No.
And so but like having her hear the stuff from her now in her 80s, I'm like,
Wow.
this is,
Wow.
it's so huge.
That's
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah, because what do we have but now? What does, so now if she's having that experience, now if she's having the experience of like being present and forgiving herself and releasing the past,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Now she is rewriting her story
Right.
because the story she's written up until this point has not been a pleasant one for her
Right.
or for me or for my brother.
Yeah.
But she has, every day she's alive, she has a chance to rewrite the story. Every day she's alive, she has a chance to create a new reality for herself and to move forward with joy in a
Mm-hmm.
positive way. And even if it's just to say, I like walking and experiencing the trees. It's
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be 80 to feel that way, to just be able to take joy in these simple pleasures. And like obviously she's not going to get another job or like,
Right.
have a lot of new goals to set.
Yeah.
But all of us, I mean, that's one of the things that Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about, is just like being present in the moment. All of us can create a new reality for ourselves just by taking a moment and saying, it's a beautiful day.
Mm-hmm.
It's warm and sunny. That's a throwback to our Reiki experiences, but like, it's a
Right.
beautiful
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
The sun's out, or it's a beautiful day. It's raining, and look at how the plants and the trees love the rain.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
Listen to the bird songs.
right.
Yeah.
Well, living in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's raining." Da, 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 or I saw a sign the other day. It's like, "Pray for spring." It's like, you know what? All seasons are beautiful here. All seasons are anywhere. It's like, I love the gray sky and the
Mm-hmm.
green evergreen trees against the gray clouds. To me, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
The light is so beautiful, and the rain makes everything beautiful. And then we have storms in the spring and February, the windstorms, and you just get to listen to it and the sound of the rain on the, and on the windows, and everything just smells so clean afterwards. And then we have summers where like people are just soaking up the sun because like they're like, oh my God, it's been so long. And so there's a lot of joy in the summer
Mhm.
because of that. And then we have the falls turn, and like, the leaves turning color, and every moment has this beauty. All you have to do is look for it. The people will complain about dandelions and go about spraying dandelions, the toxic poison on dandelions.
Yeah.
Dandelions are nutritious. They're
Mhm.
beautiful. You can make wishes on them when they turn to seed heads.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so much to be joy found in a dandelion that so many people just want to snub out rather than recognizing it for what it is, which is like a miraculous plant, a gift of Mother Earth, a gift of God.
Yeah.
You know, if you were seriously, if like, you know, the stores all like closed up because of something, you could go out and find weeds to sustain you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's amazing too. I saw a video, this goes back a few years now, and it was a gentleman saying, you know, just about dandelions and saying how amazing it is that when you find them around, there could be various reasons for it. One of them could be that, you know, your soil is very compact and the seeds will take root where it is very compact, because then they have these deep, deep roots that then open up and aerate the soil and allow other organisms and worms and stuff to have space, because when it's so compacted, they can't move through it.
Yeah.
And it's like Mother Nature knows, you know, how many seeds go out, but they don't grow like everywhere, but they grow where they're needed. Or it could be a lacking of, I think it was calcium in the soil. And that's another reason, again, if a seed lands somewhere, there's some kind of mechanism that again will have it grow there, because when the dandelion dies and at the end of the season, the leaves degrade and go back into the dirt. And then you have a replenishment of calcium in the soil. So if you look at something like, I know growing up, dandelions were for sure demonized, because everybody had to have like a green lawn. And it was like, I'm too lazy to really like invest in that. But, you know, people get crazy with their weed killer and so on. And as I've grown and as I've learned more and more about different weeds and things that you view that were always planted in my head as being the nasties or the whatever, because like, let's say there's, you know, go a guy who's like a ground cover and goes everywhere. Now I know obviously sometimes they can maybe, you know, squish out maybe a plant that needs a little bit more space, but in general, ground cover for, again, all the organisms and stuff that kind of protect the bare dirt from the direct sunlight, keeping the moisture in the dirt. Like it all has these magical purposes.
Yeah.
And they only come up because of something missing or something needed, not to be a nuisance and not to be a whatever. They're really doing kind of what they're made to do. Now, I know we've interspecied and, you know, brought in non-native things that maybe do get more aggressive over the, that's, you know, a whole other thing. But it's just like when you examine what's around you and what grows literally in your own energetic little surround around your home, you kind of get paired energetically, maybe also what you're missing, you know, in your diet. Like we have, it's funny, from where we used to live, I think I've told you this story before, we used to have a lot of stinging nettle that would pop up in this one patch right near the house. And back then it was like stinging nettle. And so you get the gloves and rip it out. And of course, stinging nettle in its infinite wisdom has a lot of rooting system. So you can rip all you want, but if there's a little piece left, you're going to get more stinging nettle. And I remember gardening, because I had these other plants. I think I had bleeding heart. And so they get nice and big and tall and pretty lush. But then you need to cut them back down in the fall as we go into the fall. And I'd get in there thinking I had previously ripped out all of the stinging nettle, which also dies back kind of in the summer once it's done its major growth. But then inevitably grabbing one with my hand because it was hidden amongst all the other leaves and getting really upset. These darn stinging nettles. And then being here now, being exposed to a lovely Qigong teacher who brought in stinging nettle in the springtime to make a lovely stinging nettle tea at the end of our Qigong session, which was grueling. And it was amazingly delicious and so green. And I was like, my perception of that weed changed in a moment. And then I did some more research on it. And wow, not only can you, you know, make it for a tea, but you can also eat it. And I found out that it's my most favorite way of making a pesto sauce.
Yes.
Freaking amazing. And how beneficial it is iron-wise and health-wise. And also, haven't done this yet, but how you pick the leaves off, but the stalks you can actually make really cool, strong cording from it.
That's cool.
So I know I haven't done it yet, but I've seen a few people do it. And I'm like, I just want to do it just to have done it. Like, I think that's such a cool thing because it's like another resource that you just have once it's done and you've got these long things and you can just twine them together. Anyway, like I said, stay tuned.
It's free.
Stay tuned.
You're out there.
So all these things that, again, have been demonized or we remove from our lives, but they come into our lives. And if you really take a moment and educate yourself and look at things for what they are, everything has a purpose and everything has a balance. And we just tend to get in there and muck it up a little bit because we just don't even kind of relate to them. But we need to, we went way, way off topic here.
Well, not really.
Energy thing.
Yeah, it does. I mean, what's the energy of your attitude towards it? You can look at the weed and think, oh, this is noxious, I need to get rid of it. Or you can look at the nettle, the flower, and say, it's healthy, it's delicious. There's so many benefits to having this plant in my yard. And to honor that plant. It's all about how you're looking at it, all about your intention and the energy that you're putting it out to it. And then are you going to be sitting there frustrated, poisoning the earth to try to get rid of a plant that is actually really beneficial? Are you going to be honoring that plant and honoring the gift and using it as it should be used?
Right.
So it's all about intention.
Yep.
And as we know too, intention is how we shape energy. Intention and the definition of magic, or one definition of magic, it's like shaping energy or with your intention by your will. That's all it is. And that's what we do every time we do the work. We set that intention, we let the energy move. Emotion code, when you look at the basic movements of how you release the trapped energies, it kind of seems like, well, how does that work? Well, it works because it's your intention. It's love, it's your gratitude, it's your intention to release this stuff. And it's in through your intention, you are affecting your energy. With Reiki, it's your intention is to hold that space. With BCST, Biodynamic Craniosacral Therapy, your intention is to hold that space, to let the work do the work. With Reiki, you are asking Reiki to do this work for you, to come in and to remove energy blockages, to give that person or yourself the energy that you need at that time. It's like when I was sitting there in whole brain giving myself Reiki, my intention was to release the feelings that I didn't want so that I can be present. And it worked. I had a great night after that. I had a very enjoyable conversation with my nephew. So I mean, there's so much that, like, it's all about putting the energy out and using our energy in a positive way, catching ourselves when it's not positive, when we're like maybe having a lower vibrational moment or having a darker moment, and saying, okay, well, this isn't how I want. This isn't what I want right now. This isn't the energy I want to put out into the world. So what can I do to change it? What can I do to shift myself? Because it's also, again, you don't do this for other people, or you don't try to change somebody else. It's kind of like when people come to, like, say, PSYCH-K or one of these modalities, and they're like, oh, well, can't you do something on this person? Can't you do something about them? Well, let's check it. What can we do for you? Like I think this has come up in a lot of workshops, PSYCH-K workshops, of parents going, oh, my kid is this, that, and the other thing. Okay, well, what rather than like focusing on your kid, what about you? Like, what can we do with you right now?
Mhm.
We'll worry about the kid later. Because so many times when the parent shifts their own energy and their own perception, the whatever behavioral
Goes away.
goes away.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
and same thing with the emotion code. People who are experiencing, I've released my heart wall, or I've released all this stuff, and all of my relationships are easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, in Reiki, you can, this one woman was like, oh, I imagine the mental emotional symbol on somebody else's forehead if they're still with someone they think is difficult. Or, and I don't agree with that because they're trying to change somebody else without their,
Mm-hmm.
because there's, still people with a ego, spiritual people or people in the work who do have ego. So, just you got to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how about instead of working on or trying to change somebody else, which doesn't work anyway with Reiki because Reiki respects your free will.
Right, right, right.
How about instead of trying to impose your will on somebody else, you work on it yourself, on
Mm-hmm.
yourself, which is what I was doing the other night. I was like working on myself so that I was different. So
Yeah.
that I had released that frustration
Mm-hmm.
so that I then could have a good night. I wasn't trying to change the people around me. So, and that's the thing, always being conscious of that, of how we're using our energy. What is our intention? How do we want to experience the world? Well, that begins here with us.
Right, right. Yeah, and I wanted to mention too, because I think we kind of talked about this before, but um, language,
Yes.
expressing words, um, they have power. They have energy behind them, the meaning of the words or the meanings that you attribute to the words. And um, I think, unfortunately, that again, it goes back to the ego and the kind of more asleep, non-intentional mode of just kind of existing. And then words are thrown out, judgments are thrown out, and thinking of the impact that that has, um, expressing outside in the world and knowing that they all have energy that gets sent out and kind of trying to like cement that in your head to be, again, even more intentional about what words you use, what tone you use, because a lot of times that could be something that sets people off, right? It's like, might not even be the words, but it could be the tone, right? So again, paying more attention and more self-awareness of how sometimes we fall into like patterns of the past of maybe how we were spoken to in a tone, and then we throw that tone out. Um, and then being told, if you have someone hopefully in your life that's not too activated, but could, say, oh, that kind of didn't hit right. And you sound angry, or, that sounds whatever it is in the moment. And then maybe, going back over that and going, huh, yeah, I was actually triggered by something. And that was an automatic response, sending it out that way. So it's definitely a key thing for outward expression. And I also think it's a key thing for getting in touch with our thought patterns too, because those insidious little voices that might come up, if you catch them for, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't post that, or that's people aren't going to like that. So you shouldn't definitely not do that, or that's going to upset, all those voices too is again energy for yourself, which you need to be aware of as well. So yeah, it definitely is all about awareness and intention.
Yeah.
Awareness and intention.
Yeah. And if you're operating solely from a place of ego, you are assuming what other people mean, or like, kind of assigning motivation to other people to fit with your own reality, to fit with your past experiences. When you're operating from that place of ego, it's like, I always have to be right, and like I am always right. And so then you have a lot of conflict in your life because you're never allowing room for someone else to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own experiences, they have their own opinions.
Yeah.
It's
And
a,
you know what? Oh, sorry.
no, go
Continue.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because you never know what's going on with the other person. And it's funny, a situation came up where someone had reached out to someone that they knew well and respected, and they got along really well in a work capacity. And this was like a job seeking kind of thing. And so there were two opportunities on the table, and there were two people in each of the job situations which were friendly and respectful. And in one case, that person got back to this person. And in the second case, that other person didn't. And, ego wise, you think, well, geez, I thought we had like a respectful thing. Could have at least like responded with an email or give me a call, whatever. And it turns out later, as we go along, that person was actually trying to do this friend of mine a favor because things were quite wonky at the other job. They couldn't say anything. So they didn't want to reach out in a friendly capacity because they really didn't want them to invest themselves there. And so found that out after the fact. And so ended up going to that first one. And it's like, they weren't offended that they didn't, but they were questioning it and wondering why, because, they thought they got along well. But see, you never know. You never know. And it could be meant to be that way. And people were protecting them. And it was just like, wow, there's a prime example of don't let your ego go, oh, they hate me, or, or that person's evil. Like they just never got back. They're ghosting me, whatever. Like, so you don't know what the universe is like. And all these people are, they're doing for you sometimes, as long as you're throwing out positive things, because that's what he was, doing, to reach out for job stuff. And anyway, I just thought that was quite fascinating to see that play out. Only found out, like I said, after the fact, but it all made sense after the fact. So,
well, yeah, and then you go back to the whole trusting the divine, trusting guidance, trusting what's happening is actually happening for you, not to you.
Not to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think this kind of leads into the audience message.
I think it does. All right. So audience message today comes to us from this deck.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'll read that out loud. So the Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards deck. And the artwork is by Lily Moses. I guess it's Kyle Gray is the deck, the gentleman.
His decks are pretty cool. I have several of his decks.
Yeah. And this is the lovely card that presented itself for our messages today. That's the Druid card. And we've got a lovely older gentleman on the card.
It's kind of like my dad. No, just kidding.
Similar? You know this guy?
No, but I knew that guy in Olympia.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so the under message is hold the space. And so going through the little booklet, the particular message that came out there is, for the audience, is trust the process and continue to grow and bear fruit.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I kind of think that kind of fits in with all that we've been talking about. The card continues to say, and then your life will be a reflection of this. So, it's what we've been saying. You put out the positive, going back to that original message of putting out and using your energy in a positive way, and then bringing forth then positivity and positivity with everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're holding space. When you're holding space, you're allowing. You're allowing what needs to happen. There's no judgment when you're holding space. There's no agenda. When you're holding space and trusting in the process, it's, oh my God, that is so biodynamic craniosacral therapy. If you think, and also PSYCH-K and Reiki and the emotion code, it's all
foundational. It's foundational.
Yeah.
To it all.
Yes, because it's your whole, and all these modalities, and with any good practitioner, what is a good practitioner doing? But they're holding space for you. They're trusting the process. They're allowing you to do your own healing there, because it's not about them. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the person who's come to you to do this work.
Mhm.
You're trusting this, holding space. You're trusting the process. You're helping them, the person you're working with, to get into a place where they can hold space for themselves,
Right. Yeah.
where they can again be trusting this process and holding their own space. It's that resonant field that we create when we're in a group of two, or in that beautiful moment, especially like when we're in workshops together, where we're
Mhm.
holding
The
everyone's,
whole room. Oh goodness.
oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God, love that
It's good
feeling.
stuff.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then when you do that, it does continue to bear fruit. And what is the fruit? The fruit is your health. You're in expressing your inherent health. The fruit is your joy, your happiness, your life unfolding in a way that you wanted to unfold, in is allowing you to be able to co-create with divinity, allowing you to like write a story of your
Mhm.
life that you want to leave behind. That's the fruit.
Yeah.
So yeah, this ties in perfectly, because I mean, and it's the why I love this work, because like there's, and it also kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, is like, yeah, there can be times of darkness, sometimes of like where the energy is really low, but like when you get to this point, being able to look back on that and be like, okay, that is a part of my story, but that is not me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those are my experiences,
Right.
but that is not me.
Mhm.
That's stuff that happened for me, so that I can be where I am right here, right now, holding this space, trusting in the process, co-creating my reality with divinity,
Mhm.
and experiencing the life that I want, actualizing the life that I actually want, which is one of love and joy. Because I mean,
Yeah.
where else are you except for there? I
Mhm.
mean, if you're just in that place of ego and operating unconsciously, then you're not creating. You're just existing. You're moving from place to place. But getting to this place where we can do the holding the space, trusting the process, yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. And I love the fact too that, when people come to, have a treatment, a session, um, of the different modalities, then, not only does it empower them as a client to, regain sort of control over their own divinity, um, but also then the trickle down effect of then they go home, and if they have a partner or children or friends, work colleagues, so on, then then that translates over, because then it's easier for them to then have a more positive attitude to then dealing with other people and changing their perspective on things, and then so on and so on and so on, right? As you go. And even if it means, transitions like the butterfly of, sometimes things need to be released and let go, and maybe it doesn't always feel great, but again, trusting the process.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that firsthand through our classes, that people's lives changed through the course of the 2 years of doing the training, that lots of things became different. But again, all part of the evolution of for you, not to you. And so, yeah, so lots of positive things trickle down, not just for the client, but also for everyone that they touch. But I mean, it's anybody we interact with too. It doesn't have to be a client, but even as an individual, not just us, but everybody, that, if you're nice to someone, not for any reason, but just a nice comment or helping someone open a door or whatever it is, that again, that might make them smile. Maybe they needed it that day. And then again, they go home in a better mood. Maybe they were in a really bad mood, but that little action, even though it's not a big action, might be enough to just change their mood for the day, so that when they go home, they're cooking a more positive meal and a better frame of mind, which then helps them, by ingesting the positivity. Like it doesn't have to be huge,
No.
monumental anything. Because sometimes you've had a bad day. I know one time in a store, I don't know, I think it was when my grandmother was sick and I was in like a Costco with the kids and they were a lot younger. And it happened to be Mother's Day. And I think I was probably having my mom and my mother-in-law coming. So I was probably running around getting stuff for dinner and I was like in a frazzle. And like I said, I think my grandmother wasn't well at the time. And I just remember this random man said Happy Mother's Day with a big smile on his face because I had one of the kids like in the carriage. He didn't need to say anything to me, but I can still remember it because I was just like, oh, like that's so sweet of you to take the minute. That's all. There was no more conversation than just that, but it really touched me. And see, it even brings me to kind of tears, just because it was really sweet,
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a lot to just have an impact on someone in a positive way they'll remember. This probably like 20 years ago. Oh, if even more. Anyways.
Well,
So,
that goes, that goes back to everybody being an energy worker because we're all energy and we're all, if we're using our energy in a positive way, putting like giving someone a compliment, bringing a smile to someone's face, wishing someone happy Mother's Day, it makes a difference. You don't need to like spend the crazy amounts of money to go to a workshop to do that stuff. It's just a part of your life. Like speaking of Costco, I remember being in Costco one time and the guy working the register was in a palpably bad mood. I don't know what happened to him, or maybe he just had a series of difficult exchanges. And I don't really remember what I said to him, but I said something to like, and he, by the time I left, he was smiling and he was definitely, his mood was much better, like, because he was like, because I took a second while it didn't take me any extra time because I'm like standing there anyway and he's checking me out. I didn't let his
right. You didn't go, whoa, what's up with this guy? Yeah.
Because I felt it as soon as I walked up to him. I was like, oh, and it kind of took me for a second. And then I just consciously was like, how you doing? What's going on?
You were seeing them as a person,
yes,
as opposed to this disgruntled clerk who's doing his job, whatever,
Yeah. And it didn't take me any extra time. And it certainly was less energy than for me to be upset about like his energy being not feeling great. So that, and by the time I was good that he was done checking out my stuff and I had paid and left, he was in a great mood. I was actually feeling better than when I walked up.
Right.
I was like, just happy that like, he was able to, feel better.
Yeah.
And it's not a special skill. Being nice to somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
All it takes.
Yep.
So yeah, it's
and when you think of it though, as I said, the paying forward, so then his next people coming in, then he'll address them differently too, right? So if maybe somebody else is coming down that's having a bad day, that maybe that would have made for like a really bad clash, or they went, like it. That's what I mean. It infiltrates. It's like magic, right?
It's the butterfly flapping their wings.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it sounds corny, but I mean, it's so true.
Yeah.
In those little encounters,
It really is.
That's why little encounters, little stories, our little experiences, they all make a difference.
They make a huge difference. And just like this one person said Happy Mother's Day to you and you still remember it 20 years later, that's a story he created.
Yeah.
Part of the story of his life and the good energy and the good effects that he's had in his life. And there's countless, I feel like we both probably have countless stories, little things that a lot of people might not even remember. But it doesn't even matter. It doesn't, you don't have to. And it's one of the things I liked about that. It's like, the great story doesn't have to be, end with the sword raised in victory.
Right. Yep.
Just about a life well lived.
Yeah.
Some of the
Yeah.
best stories are about, just,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you want to go to media, like the Forrest Gump movie,
Mhm.
it's about a guy being present and being nice,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, one of the most popular probably movies in all time, why? Because it's like a feel good kind of thing,
Yeah.
and that it's not a huge, like, there's no giant, big, battle at the end. I mean,
Right.
don't get me wrong, I love the Lord of the Rings movie. I love the
A good
books
battle can be
more,
fun. Yeah.
but like, but yeah, just having these positive experiences, putting the good energy out there, seeing yourself as an energy worker, seeing everything as energy, and the fact that, like, as you're putting this work out there, as you're putting these good vibes out, that it has a good experience in the world, that
Mhm.
it impacts the world in a way that it doesn't even matter if you ever see what the
Yeah.
end result is.
Mhm.
Again,
Mhm.
letting go of that expectation, just do it because it feels good, and
Yeah.
because that's the legacy that you want to leave behind. That's the story that you want to write in your life.
Yeah. Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we feeling complete with this? I'm kind of feeling like this is a good stopping point.
I
Or
think so too.
would you have anything else to say?
No, I think we've summed it all up.
I think so. And I think, it's spring is upon us soon. And I just am really looking forward to that as much as I love the winters.
Mhm.
I also really love spring.
Yeah.
So,
I'm looking forward to the lilacs.
yes, a friend
And
of mine.
also, it's funny looking outside. Sorry to cut you off. Looking out, you were talking about the darker skies or the overcast at the rainy time, but the cherry blossoms, the early ones that come out against that dark sky, that dark blue gray sky. I mean, it's stunning. They just pop.
Yeah.
You couldn't ask for a more beautiful canvas picture. It's just,
Oh, I know.
yeah. So, yeah. So I have to appreciate it all because it can all be pretty in some
Yeah, it's all
fashion.
about how you look at it. It's all
Mhm.
about there's in the Tao Te Ching, I believe it is. Um, there's a saying, to say one thing is beautiful, to say something else isn't. But
Mhm.
if you look at everything as beautiful, then everything is beautiful,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know. So,
Yep.
and with that, I really do feel complete. So,
Awesome.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone who stuck with us to the end of this
Mhm.
video.
Yay.
For listening, watching, and please like and subscribe. And we just hope that everyone has a really beautiful day
Yes, definitely.
every day afterwards as well.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for watching Kim and Angela talk. Please like and subscribe below. To book sessions with Kim, visit keycranio.com. To book sessions with Angela, visit thisreikilife.com. Thank you.